So I think without much ado, I'll pass it on again back to Professor Namrata for taking us through this webinar. You're muted, I think, Namrata.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll be introducing Advocate Dr. Hitesh J. Bhatt, who's at present practicing at Andheri, Mumbai. He's a medical legal consultant for last 20 years. He's a medical legal consultant for Wadia Maternity Hospital, Mumbai, Central Railways Hospital, Mumbai, and 80 hospitals all across India. He's a partner in legal firm at BNS Medical Legal Consultancies, past chairperson Ethics and Medical Legal Committee, FOXY. He's authored books on consents and obscene and law doctor must know. He's been invited as national faculty at many national and state conferences and delivered more than 700 talks, and has served as office bearer for IMA, AMC, MOGS, and AFG. And he's also life member of Film Writers Association, Mumbai. So that is very interesting. And he's going to be talking about telemedicine with medical legal aspects in ophthalmology. So over to Dr. Hitesh Bhatt for his presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much for kind introduction and for the kind words and inviting me for this very prestigious webinar and introducing me to ophthalmology friends. So friends, we are having a webinar on medical legal issues. Now, sir referred a word tele-ophthalmology. So we are always in a hurry to make new words like retinal specialist or endoscopist. There are usually the medical legal field. There is nothing like medical legal. These are the legal principles applicable to medical field. But we are always good at coining various terms, and like if there is a say there is some problem with the engineering field, there is nothing like engineer or legal. Or if something goes wrong at political front, there is nothing like politico-legal or architecto-legal. But we are making ourselves different by using such words. So, but whatever it is, and that is how we are here for a medical legal webinar. So let us start with the saying by Rudyard Kipling, and he said that God could not be everywhere and therefore he made mothers. To which I say that a doctor could not be everywhere and therefore they made telemedicine. And that is how the telemedicine has come into existence. There was a case from Maharashtra, Deepa Sanjeev Pavaskar versus State of Maharashtra. And in this case, we will just see the glimpse. I'm just giving you the history, how this has evolved. So in this case, what happened? The patient underwent cesarean operation. Patient was discharged with the baby. On second or third day after discharge, the patient had some problem. The doctor couple was not in town. So they called doctor, and doctor said them to go to some pharmacist. The doctor talked to the pharmacist. Pharmacist gave some medicine to the relative of the patient. Patient took that medicine, but patient was still having the problem. So doctor advised that patient to get admitted in her hospital. Now in her hospital, she and her husband, they were not there. They were in a conference somewhere. There was no RMO, no other doctor was there to take care. And ultimately, the patient's condition deteriorated because they just kept on talking over a telephone with the staff nurse, and the patient had to be shifted to some other hospital, and their patient died. So Bombay High Court noted in this particular case, while giving for a bail application, that there was no effort to refer the woman to another hospital or another doctor in the absence of the couple. There was no resident medical officer or any other doctor to take care. An error in diagnosis could be negligence and can be covered under section 304A. But in this case, the prescription without diagnosis is a culpable negligence. So prescription without diagnosis would amount to culpable negligence. These were the words of the court, and that is why everybody feared. We got a lot of messages on the WhatsApp without understanding the intricacy of the case, that telemedicine should not be done, no telephonic advice should be given. And there were so many news like this. Even Karnataka Medical Council was against, and they said no telemedicine or no telephonic consultation should be done. In this case, the IMA wrote a letter to Medical Council of India that what is the stand of telemedication. You just tell us what we should do. Now, you know, in 2017, the Medical Council of India was replaced by the National Medical Commission. And the takeover was not complete, like it is still going through. And during that time, the Board of Governors are running the show. So Board of Governors from the Medical Council, they have come out with this guideline, telemedicine practice guideline. This is how it has evolved. Now, they were to come out with these guidelines by 2022. But since the corona issue came, they had to hasten the process, and ultimately we got these guidelines on 25th March 2020, and these guidelines are officially gazetted now, and this has come into force. So it came into force on 12th May 2020. So since it is added into the Medical Council Act by way of gazette, it is a permanent thing and not related to corona period only. And it is added as section 3.8. Forget the number of the section, but the point is it is added as one of the sections of the Medical Council Act. So it has become a permanent amendment into the Medical Council Act. And it says that consultation through telemedicine by registered medical practitioner under Indian Medical Council Act shall be permissible in accordance with the telemedicine practice guidelines contained in Appendix 5. So we are going to see this Appendix 5 in a short while. So what is telemedicine? I will give you the important definition, and each definition or each slide which I am going to tell you are the important part of that 53-page document. So you will not have to go through that if you listen to this very carefully. Telemedicine is the delivery of healthcare services where distance is a critical factor by all healthcare professionals. Now, distance is a critical factor. That doesn't mean it has to be a long distance. If patient is, say, morbid, going to a next door can be a critical factor. And the one who is having his private jet, even reaching America, the distance is not a critical factor. So distance is a critical factor is a relative term, and it is not measured in kilometers always. So delivery of the healthcare service where distance is a critical factor by all healthcare professionals using information and communication technologies for exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, prevention of disease, research, and for continuing education healthcare services, all in interest of advancing the health of individual and their communities. So this is what is telemedicine. Telehealth is a broader term. The delivery of and facilitation of health and health-related services, including medical care, provider and patient education, health information service, and self-care via telecommunication and digital communication technologies. So if you see a whole spectrum, the telehealth is a bigger part, while telemedicine is a small part of telehealth. So all telemedicine is a telehealth, but everything in telehealth cannot be telemedicine. So if somebody develops some app, say there is a Samsung Health app, that is included in telehealth, but it's certainly not a telemedicine. So telemedicine includes all channel of communication with the patient, including video, audio, text, and digital data exchange. The guideline specifically excludes specification for the hardware or software. Why I am telling you this? Because it is mentioned in the guideline. So if some company comes to you telling that it is approved by Medical Council of India, then he is lying. The Medical Council of India guideline do not specify any particular hardware or software. Rather, it has said that it includes telephone, video, the devices connected to LAN, WAN, internet, mobile, landline phones, chat platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. That includes any other mobile app or internet-based digital platforms for telemedicine or data transmission like Skype, email, or anything. So it can be Google Duo, anything. So there are so many things they have included. So in anything and everything which includes video, audio, text, and digital data exchange is included in telemedicine. Emergency consult for immediate assistance or first aid. What telemedicine guideline says about emergency consultation? In case alternative care is not present, teleconsultation might be the only way to provide timely care. In such situation, RMP may provide consultation to their best judgment. telemedicine services should, however, be avoided for emergency care when alternative in-person care is available. These are very important words. So in emergency, telemedicine services should not be used as far as possible, and telemedicine consultation should be limited to first aid, life-saving measure, counseling, and advice on referral. So if patient calls me that, sir, I am having chest pain, at the most what I can tell is that put that Sorbitrate tablet below your tongue if I feel that the symptoms are like the cardiac pain, and I can tell them to go immediately to the nearby hospital. So that is what telemedicine should be used for emergency services. Also, it is not used for the surgical part. So you cannot put in the scope, or you cannot transmit the images while doing a surgery and asking that another surgeon to guide you in a surgery. It should not be used for surgical procedures as well. In case of emergency, the patient must be advised for an in-person interaction with an RMP at the earliest. This is what the guideline says. Now, what are the definitions of RMP? RMP is defined as a person who is enrolled in the state register or the national register under Indian Medical Council Act. So a person has to be registered with the state at any state, and that is RMP, so MBBS and above. Health worker could be a nurse, allied health professional, mid-level health practitioner, ANM, or any other health worker designated by an appropriate authority. That means he is a paramedic person. Caregiver could be a family member or any person authorized by the patient to represent the patient. So it is somebody who comes with the patient in our inpatient practice. That is a caregiver. Or there could, when it comes to caregiver, there could be two possibilities. One, the patient is present with the caregiver during the consultation, or two, patient is not present with the caregiver. Now, when patient is not with the caregiver, again there can be two possibilities. One, if patient is minor or the patient is incapacitated, that means patient is unconscious or patient is not in a position to take any decision, not of the sane mind, the caregiver is deemed to be authorized to consult on behalf of the patient in such cases. So here the age of majority is 16. So if patient is more than 16 years of age, he or she can directly consult, otherwise through a guardian or a caregiver. And second situation is caregiver has a formal authorization or a verified document establishing his relationship with the patient and or has been verified by the patient in previous in-person consultation. So if patient has come with the son in-person consultation, in that case, next time the son can consult you for the father's problem. So this is what is about the caregiver. In all above, the consult shall proceed as in case of RMP with the patient. So even if it is caregiver, you have to go ahead as if you are consulting the patient. Now telemedicine works between, why this definition I have given you? Because telemedicine works between patient to RMP, caregiver to RMP, RMP to RMP, and health worker to RMP. So what is common here is RMP. So RMP has to be there, otherwise it is not telemedicine. So if your nurse talks to a patient, it is not telemedicine. Telemedicine is always inclusive of RMP. That is very important. Otherwise it will be telehealth, but not telemedicine. Identification of the registered medical practitioner and the patient is required. Telemedicine consultation should not be anonymous. So somebody cannot call you that my neighbor's brother, sister's father is having this problem. Patient has to be identified. So an RMP should verify and confirm patient's identity by name. Consent can be implied or explicit. What is implied consent? Implied consent is where both the parties know what is going to happen. Explicit consent is where you have to tell the other party that this is what is going to happen. That is called explicit consent, where explicit consent can be written or it can be oral. That means it can be documented, it can be non-documented, but non-documented consent has no validity. If the patient initiates telemedicine consultation, then consent is implied. It is very easy to understand. If patient calls me for a medicine, or patient starts video, or patient sends me message, that means patient is comfortable with telemedicine consultation. So there the consent is implied. The explicit consent is required when a healthcare worker RMP or a caregiver initiates telemedicine consultation. So if I tell the patient that next time you call me and I will give you medicine or I will change the medicine, in that case, the patient should give consent. Now, how can patient give consent? The explicit consent can be recorded in any form. Patient can send an email, text, audio, video message. Patient can state only one line. Yes, I consent to avail consultation through telemedicine. These words are enough to establish a consent of the patient that she or he is okay with the telemedicine. But you have to record or document such words. If she is sending mail, then preserve that mail. If she is telling it on telephone, record that telephone. If she is telling it on video, record that video. But you have to have a documentation of the explicit consent. Now we are coming to the middle part of the presentation. First consultation. These are all important definitions. We have seen a few definitions. Now two or three more definitions we have to see. First consultation. These are all put it into words. Otherwise, we all know what it is. What is first consultation? A patient is coming for the first time. That is first consultation. Or patient has consulted the RMP earlier, but more than 6 months have passed. Or patient has come with a different health condition. So this is called the first consultation, and there is nothing new in this, but it is put in proper words now. Follow-up consultation. What is follow-up consultation? If patient is consulting with the RMP within 6 months, if patient comes for the same problem, it is follow-up consultation. However, it will not be considered follow-up if patient has new symptom or the RMP does not recall the context of the previous treatment. So if RMP forgets, even patient comes within 6 months, and even the complaint is same, still it will be a new consultation because the RMP doesn't know what it was. Telemedicine has its own set of limitations for adequate examination. Now this is very, very important to understand. If a physical examination is critical for consultation, RMP should not proceed until a physical examination can be arranged through an in-person consult, or if necessary, RMP can recommend video consultation or examination by another RMP or in-person consultation. So duty is given to RMP. Now, if you understand our teachings, we were taught that there is inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. So if you can diagnose some condition only by inspection, then at the most by video consultation, you can diagnose that condition. But if you require palpation, percussion, auscultation, or any other modality, which you ophthalmologists need a lot, if you need any such kind of modalities to diagnose certain things, you have to stop that, and you have to recommend that to the patient to get it done by somebody or to come to you in person. So it is not compulsory. Once the consultation has started, it has to finish. You can stop anywhere, but duty is given to a doctor. So please do not go ahead once started without diagnosing the condition properly. RMP shall maintain all the patient record, including case history, investigation report, images, etc., as appropriate. Now, last part and last important thing which one must understand, and that is the list of drugs. There are 4 lists given into the last portion where the drugs are categorized into various lists. There are 4 lists: list O, list A, list B, and prohibited drug. What is list O? It is matching with the blood groups, but it has nothing to do with blood group. O, A, and B. These 3 things you have to understand. List O are the over-the-counter medicine. These are absolutely, there is nothing with the schedule of the drug as per the Drug Act. List O drugs in telemedicine guidelines are the medicines which are available over the counter. According to Drug Act, these are the medicines which require no prescription. Anybody can go to a medical store and ask for it. And these medicines are antipyretics, cough supplements, lozenges, cough syrup, or some chloride or guanifin or ambroxol or ORS packet, or some supplement like iron and folic acid, vitamin D. So all these are over-the-counter drugs. So you do not, you have to remember that this is list O, that is over the counter drug. Now come to list A. What is list A? List A includes the specific drugs for the disease, which otherwise requires a prescription. That includes ointments, lotions, skin ointment, the ointments like clotrimazole, mupirocin, calamine lotion, benzamin lotion, local ophthalmic drops, ciprofloxacillin for conjunctivitis, etc., or ear drops, and follow-up consultation for the above medication. Follow-up medication for chronic diseases like for hypertension, diabetes, asthma. So group A basically is a medicine which you prescribe specifically after diagnosing something by inspection with other reports. Other reports includes, say, laboratory report or sonography report or your A scan, B scan report or whatever. After some kind of pathology, some kind of paramedical help, whatever you can diagnose with inspection only, you can prescribe, and whatever you prescribe in person, you can prescribe the same medicine as list A medicine. Now, what is list B medicine? List B medicine is the list of medication which RMP can prescribe in a patient who is undergoing follow-up consultation in addition to those which have been prescribed during in-person consultation. So if patient has come to you once and then you want to add on something later on in as an ongoing treatment, in that case, whatever medicine you prescribe, it may be same which I told you, you can start as a list A drug. So the same medicine you are giving it as add-on, that will fall into list B because it is follow-up of the in-person consultation. So these are the list O, list A, list B. The last list is prohibited medicine. Prohibited medicines are the medicines which you cannot prescribe via telemedicine. That includes Schedule X drug as per the Drug Act. The Schedule X drugs should not be used or should not be prescribed via telemedicine, and narcotic and psychotropic substance drug, that also cannot be prescribed by the telemedicine methods. So why this? Why all this? That will be my last slide of this presentation. Let us recap what we have learned. Emergency and non-emergency situation. The type of medium can be a video, audio, or text. The consultation can be first consultation and follow-up consultation, and the group of drug O, A, B, and prohibited. Just recap 4 things, and we are coming to the important part of the presentation. This is this table given in the telemedicine guideline. In this table, if you see the heading, there is a drug group, that is O, A, and B, type of consultation, and method of telemedicine. These 3 things are mentioned in this table. And why this table is important, why these all definitions were important, you will come to know once you learn this table. First thing, if you want to prescribe something from group O, that is over-the-counter drug, either in the first consultation or follow-up consultation, the method of telemedicine can be audio, video, or text. Understand this this is very important. So give full concentration here. If you want to prescribe something from group O, the consultation can be first consultation or a follow-up consultation, and the method of telemedicine can be audio, video, or text. If you want to prescribe something from group A, if it is first consultation or a follow-up consultation, it has to be video consultation. So you cannot prescribe specific medicines which are available on prescription and not the over-the-counter drug. The consultation has to be video consultation. You cannot prescribe, say, ciprofloxacin drop over a WhatsApp chat. This is not allowed. However, if you want to prescribe something from group B as a follow-up medicine, then the consultation can be audio, video, or text. So if you want to, patient has come to you, you have seen the patient, there is conjunctivitis, you have given some medicine, now you want to change to a ciprofloxacin drop, then you can prescribe it over either audio or video or text as a group B medicine or list B medicine. The same medicine can be prescribed. And prohibited medicine cannot be prescribed in first consultation or a second consultation, and or not by audio, video, or text. So prohibited drugs cannot be prescribed by telemedicine. So this is what are the important provision of telemedicine. Now we are coming to the fact which we already know about prescription. But in this telemedicine, they have given few lines for the prescription as well. RMP shall prescribe the medicine. They have to issue a prescription as per the Indian Medical Council Act. So Council has already given the format of the prescription, and you have to follow the prescription rules. What are the RMP shall provide a photo, scan, digital copy of a signed prescription or e-prescription, or via email or by any messaging platform. But it has to be photo, scan copy or digital copy of a signed prescription or a e-prescription generated through some software. It can't be a word format because patient can change the quantity, patient can change the name. So do not give something which can be later on changed at the end of the patient. So that is what this guideline says. And in case of if RMP is transmitting the prescription directly to the pharmacist, in that case, the explicit consent of the patient is required. So if you tell that I am giving this prescription to the RMP and you collect the medicine from the pharmacy, in that case, the patient's consent is required. Otherwise, you have to give prescription to the patient. And this is the format of the prescription given in this guideline, and it should include all these things. At least the name of the date of the consultation, name of the patient, address of the patient, age, gender, height, weight, LMP, chief complaint, diagnosis, all the relevant history, and the name of the medicine, the dose of the medicine, timings of the medicine, specific instruction for the medicine, and your signature and registration number. This many things should be there in every prescription that we all know. But this is the format they have given, and we must stick to this format. Now, last thing is professional fees. Should I take professional fee? That question is also asked by so many colleagues. Why we hesitate in taking money for anything? We must ask for the professional fees, and this is what the guideline says. Telemedicine consultation should be treated same way as in-person consultation for the fees perspective. That means you can take the fee. That doesn't mean the fees should be same. You can have more fees, you can have less fees. Only thing is you have to treat it as in-person consultation. That means there are guidelines for fees for in-person consultation in Medical Council of India Act. What it says, you have to write your charges at the reception. It has to be revealed to the patient before they enter your chamber. So here also you have to tell the patient that these are my charges, say 1,000 rupees for 1 hour or 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever time slot you give or whatever way you want to charge, or for first consultation and 500 for second consultation or follow-up consultation. You can, but you have to tell your charges, declare your charges beforehand. That is the only thing required. And I advise, this is not in the guideline, I advise always take your charges beforehand. Ask them to pay first and then you deliver your service. And that is what we have learned from the IT people. Amazon delivers the goods only after you pay them. Even if it is payment on receipt, they first take the money and then they hand over the parcel. So please take your money beforehand on telemedicine and then give your advice or then start your consultation. And RMP also should give receipt for the same. So please start giving receipt to the patient. And while giving receipt, again, it has to be in electronic format or PDF format or non-changeable format. It can be a photograph, but do not give it in Word format. Otherwise, if you will charge 100 rupees, they will make it 10,000 rupees. So please do not give it in Word format. So in summary, we can say the RMP should exercise their professional judgment to decide whether a telemedicine consultation is appropriate in situation or in-person consultation is required. So responsibility is given to RMP. Identification of the patient, mode of communication, consent. If it is patient starts, then no need for consent. If you start, then consent is required. Then type of consultation, first consultation, second consultation, and patient evaluation, diagnosis, and prescription. Now, as far as negligence is concerned, already the advocate Amit is going to talk on that. But the patient shall be responsible for inaccuracy of the information shared by him or her with the RMP. This is what is written in the telemedicine guideline. So if patient gives you wrong information or wrong ID, then it is their problem. The RMP asking another RMP for the advice, the treating RMP will remain responsible for the patient. So if I ask Dr. Rajashekar for my patient some medicine and he prescribed me something, I give it to the patient. If something goes wrong, I am responsible. I cannot tell that Rajashekar gave me this advice. If RMP feels that the information provided is inadequate, then he or she shall request for additional information. This information may be shared in real time. That means patient can give you radiological report, laboratory report by either WhatsApp or by email or by video consultation. But till that time the reports are done, such consultation will be considered as paused, and the consultation can be resumed or rescheduled after the reports are there. So negligence as such, he is taking what is negligence. So that Amit will tell you. So negligence will be decided as per the definition. Documentation, you have to maintain the log of the record of telecom interaction, that is phone log, email record, chat record, video interaction, patient record, reports, documents, whatever patient gives you, you have to maintain. Confidentiality have to be maintained. And if any breach of confidentiality is because of the platform, suppose you are using some sort of software and that gets hacked, then responsibility is not on RMP for the breach of confidentiality. Otherwise, if I leak the images of the patient, then the RMP is responsible. And penalties as per IMC Act for not following this guideline. And what are the penalties Indian Medical Council Act can impose on you? They can just give you a letter, threatening letter, that henceforth you don't do this, or removal of name for few days, few weeks, few months, or few years, or permanent. IMA was not happy with this guideline, but now this is irrelevant because it is already gazetted. So we have to follow this. So if you want to be 100% safe from medico-legal problem, because we always fear medico-legal thing. So if you want to be 100% safe from medico-legal problem, you can start your band, you can become photographer, you can join Bollywood, you can join some saint, or you can join Dawood gang. Ultimately, you have to run away and leave medical practice. But that is not possible because we know only medicine. So I always tell that if you try hard, you can learn some asana to diagnose your own piles. If you follow Baba Ramdev, you can definitely diagnose your own piles. It is possible, but it is impossible to be away or 100% safe from medical legal problem while being in a medical practice. It is not possible. So do not panic. Medical problems are going to come. Do not panic. Do not keep concentrating on a problem which has happened. You may harm the other normal case. While operating, if you keep on thinking about the previous notice, you will definitely harm the other case. So please do not do that. And the last slide, that's have stress-free practice. My teacher used to tell me when I was doing gynecology that if you do not perforate, that means you are not doing enough MTP. Now I am telling you all that if you do not get a single notice during your entire practice, you are not seeing enough patient. Please increase your practice. So have stress-free practice, and to have stress-free practice, you must practice to remain stress-free. This is the message I wanted to give. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hitesh Bhatt. I think that was a fantastic, completely mind-blowing presentation, and you made it sound so simple. And I just thought that if you are not practicing medicine, then we could practice law, like you have decided to do.
Yeah.
So, so that was one aspect, but it was just fantastic. You made it very simple for everybody.